Welcome to Desire Dilemma, a podcast that amplifies immigrant voices in America. I'm Funmi Apantaku-Onayemi, your host. As we wrap up Season 1, we'll bring you highlights from some of our guests about their coming to America, the struggles they faced, and the challenges they overcame. Please enjoy some nuggets of wisdom, imprints of values, and pointers of success. Mr. Osundolire, you left your thriving architectural work in Nigeria to live in America. What led you to that decision?
In one word, I would say family. Just for a quick context, my family had relocated since 2016. That's 7 years ago. And at the time, I opted for coming to the United States as a visitor. And I did that for 6 years.
When I came here to this country, I came to go to school, and I loved the vastness of this country. I guess it was really the allure of the variety of things to do and the variety of places to go. Even though in my country, we never lacked, and my country still has somewhat of a very high standard of living, I like to think here that there's a bigger variety of everything, and I love variety and choices.
Well, for anybody that thinks about America in Nigeria, we were very excited. At a period of time, we didn't see my dad for quite some time based on the immigration policies at the time. So it was a very exciting thing.
I would say I admired this country, but it wasn't really somewhere where I was really eager or rushing to go to. Coming to the US was really a last resort for me to come and further my education at that time. I practiced as a journalist for 3 years before coming. I'd already gained admission into Texas Southern University to continue my journalism education. So I came there to get my degree in journalism and a master's degree too, and with the hope of returning to Nigeria to step back into my position as a journalist for the Radio Lagos Broadcasting Corporation. So after that, my first degree, I got married and started having kids, and then thinking, okay, I need to spend some time raising them. 3 years, 4 years, now almost 40 years later, we are still here. And I think the more time you spend here, the more you get accustomed to it.
Just being here, now being with my family, I have to fend for myself. I have to integrate myself into society. It's been really difficult. So it's been a wave of, there are days I'm upbeat and super excited at the opportunities. There are also days that I'm depressed about the things I've left behind. Just for context, I had a very good job. I was probably upper middle class back in Nigeria. I had a comfortable life. I don't do DIY, but I'm here now. I have to do DIY. I'm unemployed. It's hard.
I think DIY means do it yourself.
Do it yourself. Yeah.
Okay.
In Nigeria, I would call a mechanic. I would call a plumber. I had a cook. I had a cleaner. Here, I have to do those things myself. And that's hard.
I find that I missed the closeness of my family. I think that's what I missed most of all. It's something that I have had to deal with my entire time here. It's always been a struggle, just trying to find those intimate groups. That's been my issue. Thank God I have a very, very, very good friend. Even though my friend lives thousands of miles from me, but I can thank God that, I have that good friend, and I have made other good friends as well. But, the intimacy
I remember my first job, I had to go to a job fair for, and I was hired on the spot, right? So it was something else when I actually started the job, because my colleagues only heard my accent, and it was my accent too that brought about the hesitation in their admitting me into the program to begin with. But once I step into the school, I faced another discrimination from my colleague because the accent was a little bit stronger than what it is now. And I didn't try to Americanize or change anything about me. So they look at me like someone who would be incompetent. But after a year, all of that changed because they were like, I don't know. I got the ESL Teacher of the Year, and I was getting it back to back to back. That when I transitioned into the other school, I was like, go find somebody else. That's enough. I don't want to do this anymore. I mean, I'm saying that because this was someone, if I had not been resilient, right? Or if I had not been determined to go all the way, somebody like me could have been prevented from making the impact that I was able to make. To see that I was able to do this for 30 years. I even finished my career as a Teacher of the Year at my school.
Wow,
I thought that was just a blessing.
That is good.
I started like that and I ended like that too.
We came, and at the time we actually had to reside in a church for maybe a week or a few weeks, because my dad at the time didn't have a place for us to live. But eventually we got a place and registered at this school called in the south suburbs. Well, as far as the school experience, it was wouldn't say it was quite different from the school in Nigeria, but I would say that being able to assimilate was a little difficult at the time. When I came here initially, my accent was very heavy, and at the time it was very difficult for people to really hear. Well, they could hear me, but not really fully understand what I was saying. Of course, I was able to fully understand what they were saying, but it was just basically not a lot of things were really lost when I was speaking.
My first time here when I landed, and my taxi took me through third world, and I was very disappointed because the image of US that I had in my head at that time was like more of a land of gold. And for the taxi to take me through third world, and I saw houses that were like substandard, and I was like, this can't be US. But after I spent some more time, I got to see other places that were more up to par with my expectation.
One of my perceptions of America has always been that even though it's a place of opportunity, it's also a place where anything goes morally. And I kind of didn't like that. I'm coming with big biases against America, especially as, moral and cultural values. And in the 1 year that I've been here fully, I've sensed, in my conversations with my children, I have sensed this clash. They say, they have a different view of what their rights are. So it's my right to watch the television. I say no. It's a privilege to watch the television. So there are those clashes, ideological clashes between how their new society operates and who we are and how we operate back home.
Yeah, let's start from the culture shock. That I observed right away, almost my first week here with my roommate. We were together, and then, maybe she will kick me accidentally or something. She'll be like, excuse me. And then she would do something and say, excuse me. And I'm thinking, excuse me? When are you going to say sorry? Do you have to break my leg or do something for you to say sorry?
Because back at home, we apologize, right?
Yes, you apologize instantly. You don't say, excuse me. Excuse me to me was like, okay, I'm asking for, permission. Excuse me, I need to go through or something like that. That was my mentality then about excuse me. I wasn't expecting you to ask me to excuse you for kicking me or for doing something that's supposed to say sorry for.
One thing that we we're usually not prepared for as immigrants coming to the United States is that, we assume that they speak English there, so we shouldn't be difficult for us to fit in. But the use of language can be very, very different. Your example of, excuse me, when we don't use it like that at home. And there is a whole lot of examples like that. Like, for example, people will say, they say, what do you want me to get for you from the store? They'll say, I don't care. Well, back at home, if you say you don't care, that is what it means. You don't care. But here it means whatever, anything that you get from me is okay with me. So you see those kind of things, and you see variations in use of languages, such as, somebody said, I want to go to the restroom. You thinking that they're going to somewhere where they can just lay down and rest, not knowing that, hey, they're talking about the lavatory, as we call it back at home. So, those kind of things, exist. And so we can just tell people who are thinking about going to foreign countries to think about it. Even if they speak English on the other side, they still need to, be prepared for, the different variations of, using the language.
We know that immigrant parents struggle with the cultural divide between themselves and their adult children. And talking about being at the elderly age, did you have to deal with that in your case?
First of all, I wanted to go to school. When I said I'm going to go to college, my parents said no, and I went to work, and they supported me and they were proud of me once I became a teacher. But I look at my children, and we live in the same country. There's a huge difference between my children and me. And then when you add on to that the cultural divide, it makes it difficult. So that what happens is, like, for me, really, I lived two lives. I lived one life to accommodate my parents, where I lived that culture, translated for them. But I lived another life, which was in the American community. And they didn't mix that much. Like, I was not free to, say, confide in my mother things that maybe I could have if she was an American, because I knew she wouldn't understand. And I knew that perhaps some of the things, even though they were innocent, would hurt her. So I just didn't tell her. Like I said, I lived two separate existences.
My parents were very strict individuals, and although we were assimilating into the American culture, there were certain things in which we basically couldn't do. So that kind of created a rift. I would say a little bit later on when I started getting close to leaving high school and getting to college, because at the time I was in Nigerian households, most people or most parents would say that the key careers to basically pick from, which is basically the doctor, engineering, or lawyer, or something basically that's highly acclaimed. Nobody would think about a musician or things like that. At the time, I was really into music. This was discouraged at the home, because it's like, hey, you're spending time doing this, whereas you could be spending time focusing on more education and things like that.
And I think that they did three things for me that are main. One, they taught me to respect. To respect others, to respect ideas, to respect the community and my place in it. Two, they gave us a work ethic. We had to do what we had to do. And thirdly, they taught us that we could do anything that we needed to do.
When I reflect, I think I actually have the same parenting style as my dad. All right, so my dad is usually very calm. Doesn't really raise his voice too often, and just a very mellow individual. And that's the way in which I kind of approach my children. In the Nigerian tradition, we do not spare the rod. All right. but I do spare the rod.
Yes, you must, right? You must in this society.
Yeah, so I spare the rod, meaning, but I do use, a rod sometimes, which is basically a pencil, and that's pretty much all they'll ever get from me is a pencil. Okay. So as far as, to a means of a physical consequence, and that's what I call it. When I talk to them, I say that, hey, we can either talk this out and, I can get to your mind, or to be able to get to your mind, I have to get to your body to eventually get to your mind. So it's pretty much which option do you want? All right. So because, we know that basically the physical sometimes is what you got to do to be able to get to the mental. But if you can get to the mental first, that's the best way. So so I do have similar parenting styles, and I can also say that I do have similar desires of my children too. I do see them playing games. I would say that I discourage it also, and then I'm also saying, hey, you got to focus on your studies. But what I've done, what I do is basically I do have them have other outlets like with music, sports, and things like that.
We have children who are dealing with dual socialization, and that means they're dealing with the social norms at home, and also they are dealing with what is going on out there. But the main thing is that we have to kind of have our children on a solid ground in terms of our culture. So when they go outside, then they can make appropriate decisions.
And, the one important thing I think in immigrants was their community. Like, what he's saying about, the difference between the country that they came from and where they landed, like here. But they had each other. They had, they had like for us, we had Italian stores, Italian churches. And so they got support from each other. And I'm throwing this in, but when their community dissipated, that was a horror for my parents, because think about it, they didn't have anybody to share memories with. They moved in, like my parents moved in with us, but there were no other Italians around.
I realized that even though I was a single parent and raised my sons alone, one of the things that helped me to bridge the gap was friends. And so everywhere I went, I had to establish, a group of friends. Mm-hmm. And I was lucky to do that. I did that mostly through the relationships with my children and their friends. Their friends' parents would become my friends. And so that way we would, be able to help each other and support each other. We would get some of that, family bonding that, we would have missed, if we were in the Bahamas.
Italians believe very strongly in family. It's really basic. Even now, my grandchildren, my children, they believe very strongly in family. And in thinking about it is like, say for Christmas, is a good example, is that we weren't that much for gifts. The kids got stuff, but it wasn't that the holiday was focused on giving a million presents. Our holidays are still focused on everybody cooks together. Everybody, even the little kids, they're all treated as vital parts of the family. The little kids get to do little kids part of the cooking, but they cook, and so that gives them a feeling of being part of the family, not just being, go and play while the adults do this. And the kids are always incorporated. Like if we play cards or play something, the kids are incorporated too, and they're treated as real people, not just placated. And I think that does a lot, because from the get-go, it teaches them that they are part of the community that will support them.
So what I would advise the younger individuals would be that, they need to be able to, maybe speak to a counselor or someone that's basically been there. And then, and that individual will tell them that, look, this will pass. You're just going through through a short period of time in which basically, yes, it is part of, this is part of, I guess, a development into a society in which you're not used to. You have to be able to learn about the society at the same time, keep yours, and then basically you're transitioning. You're going through a huge learning phase, which is at times tough. But with other people in their corners, they'll know that it will be okay, and they themselves will make it through.
The concept of acculturation, which is, the mastering of the beliefs, behaviors, and values of your host country with that one of your native home. For you to be able to have managed and cope within all that, you've done very well.
Thank you so much for joining us. Please join us again next week as we bring you more highlights from Season 1 on Desire Dilemma, a podcast that amplifies immigrant voices in America. Please like, share, and subscribe to our podcast on YouTube. Feel free to contact us on desire.dilemma@gmail.com. Thank you and have a wonderful rest of your day.